3rd, 2022. We have a quorum present. And the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of a prior committee meeting, July 19th, 2022. I want to thank Supervisor Driscoll for watching that meeting for me, chairing the meeting for me. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Motion made by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Thomas. All those in, any discussion of the minutes? Any amending? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the minutes as submitted, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? All right, motion passes. Agenda items, action items. We do have a couple of action items that will come before us today. But let's go to the discussion for a second board meeting. It was requested that we consider the second board meeting. I think the motive behind the request to consider a second board meeting is that it's not needed. Maybe it was a good idea, but after some experience with it, it's a lot of work and so forth, and maybe it's not such a good idea. But let's discuss. Anybody? Yeah, Supervisor McDivitt.
I would agree with kind of your summation. I don't think it's necessary. I think monthly meeting is sufficient to handle any and all issues, at least in my experience over the years. So that's my personal feeling that one meeting per month is sufficient.
Okay, any other thoughts? Yes.
Thank you, Chairman.
Supervisor
It was
Driscoll.
my understanding in talking to Amanda at that time that if a hot issue comes up, we always have the opportunity to schedule a timely special meeting.
Yeah.
So, that being said, as long as that's still on the table, again, I would concur that I think we do our regular committee meetings on that particular day and then call it a day.
Okay. All right. I think that at this point in time, what I'm hearing from the committee is that we would assign, I believe it would be county council to draft a resolution to go before the board for their consideration to eliminate a second meeting of the Board of Supervisors. County council, any thoughts?
I didn't see it on the agenda, and I'm not sure if we did an amendment to the rules of the board to add it. So what we would be doing would be amending the rules,
Yes.
and my office will provide a draft proposal for amended rules just on that.
All right, is there a motion to do so? Motion made by Supervisor McDivitt, seconded by Supervisor Thomas.
Yep.
All those in favor, please signify by saying, any further discussion?
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
so with this, is it time enough to do this, vote on this on the first, or are we looking at the regular board meeting? Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
We just had a public hearing for the September 1st board meeting, so we wouldn't want to eliminate it
Okay.
until after that board meeting. So I would suggest we amend the rules and consider that. We could consider it September 1st or September.
I mean, that's one more thing on your guys' plate, though. I mean, I don't want to sweep it under the rug, but I also don't want to create a hardship for
As
staff.
far as the county attorney's office, we have no problem with no issue. With sufficient notice, so the public and the other supervisors have sufficient time to propose new rules. So it's at the pleasure of the board. As long as the clerk doesn't have an issue with adding it to September 1st.
Does changing of the rules of the board require a public hearing?
No, it's
No.
done by resolution.
All right, then we can do it by resolution, and we would make it effective, say, in October, so that it does not disrupt any current plans for second meetings.
It's a 50% vote to modify the rules of the
Right.
majority. It's a majority vote.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Oh,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
Supervisor Disco.
It looks like in September, the Personnel and Finance Committee would be held, you said September 1st?
Yes.
Well,
Okay. All right, okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought we were talking about the following month.
well, it would go if county council drafted the resolution. It could be before the Board of Supervisors at its September 16th meeting or 15th, whatever it is.
16, yeah. I apologize. I was thinking October 1st.
And then we could make it effective in October, and I don't think that would disrupt any plans if there or agendas for the second meeting, moving it, shifting it, and making it.
Well, if we
effective.
had a second meeting, that would, according to the schedule, would be held on the 29th of September. So I just want to make sure that we're not kind of like going by an October 1st date.
I don't think you would have to set a certain date once we amend the rules. Once that's adopted, it's effective immediately. If it's September 16th, any other meetings that we had that weren't scheduled in emergency on that second date would just be.
So we don't have anything scheduled for the 29th of September as of this time?
No.
All right, so maybe we suspend that. Okay. Let's put it to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? It's unanimous and passes.
And just to clarify, you have a preference which board meeting this goes to, the first or the 19th of September. I just need to know now, or if I can do it next week.
What I think we're talking for mid-September, the third Friday of
September 19th.
September.
Okay, the regular,
16.
regularly scheduled board meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Totally okay.
Okay. All right, good. Okay with the board committee. All right, I'm going to save discussions items on legislative. I want to get the other business out of the way. So I'm going to move over to the Board of Elections agenda. And they do have an action item. And the action items include an amended chargeback to the towns and city for election services and move money to pay for Veronis virus protection paid through a cybersecurity grant. But I see Bill and I see Beth. They're both on Zoom.
Yes, hi.
Good afternoon.
All right, well, thank you, commissioners, for attending the Government Ops Committee meeting. Would you like to elaborate on the two items we're supposed to consider today?
Sure, I'll do the chargeback, Bill.
Okay,
Let's see, 5 years ago, we did raise the chargeback to the towns, but it hasn't been risen since 2015. So we're looking to increase the ED by $250 for each district in the towns. And as you can see, you'll see the layout of the cost of the towns. The towns were emailed to let them know for their budgeting process earlier in July.
All right. Any further? All right, so there is a need to increase our chargebacks to help cover costs.
Yep, inspector pay is increased.
and our fear, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, our fear is there is a law that's currently passed through the Senate, sitting in the Assembly, that it's on a fast track to increase the pay again on our inspectors, increasing their pay and increasing a full day's work pay of such as today, when they started at 4:30, 4:45 this morning, and they'll go till 9 o'clock, would increase that to 300. And if we're just trying to prepare for that and help prepare, get ready for it.
Okay, so this is basically to increase fees to cities and towns from $1,500 per district to the flat rate per the attached sheet.
Correct.
Is there a motion to consider that? Motion made by Supervisor Conover, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Any further discussion? Yes, Supervisor.
Just to say, what a great job you folks do, you and your staffs. And
I'm sorry, Ron, Mr. Conover, I couldn't hear you.
it's just such a great job that you guys do at the Board of Elections. The modernization of the process and just the attention that you give to the election. Really a great thing. And
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
for some time, and I can tell you that, you're doing a fantastic job. Please move that statement along to your staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pass along. Thank you.
Yes. I think we all feel that way. Thank you. Beth and Bill.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? All right, passes unanimously. Second one, move money to pay for a virus protection.
Yeah, sure. This was it's a budget neutral. It's just moving it through the journal, according to Rob Lynch. It was money that we got in the cybersecurity grant last year, the year before last, and it's been sitting there. And it just has to be moved through the journal so that they can go ahead and pay for this cybersecurity, the Varonis protection system. Doesn't only protect the Board of Elections, but it protects the entire county, and it helped protect their emails as well. So it's just a matter of moving money. There's no budget change whatsoever.
Okay, motion to approve. Motion made by Supervisor Conover, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Discussion? Seeing none, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes unanimously. We have two discussion items. Bill and Beth?
I think we'll try to make these quick for you. We've spoken to Amanda and Sarah, and one of the biggest ones was the extra help. We presented it to Budget Committee to hire 2 new people. As I stand here now, I hope you can see them. Since 2019, there's been 128 law changes in the legislation. Currently pending, there's 38 more for 2022. All these law changes bring changes within our department, more personnel hours. We've explained in budget the 2 positions that we're looking for, and we apologize. When we listed them, it was my fault. Basically, I put down a senior tech / EMS, and I had a few supervisors call wanting to know what emergency medical services had to do with the Board of Elections, but it's actually election management systems, and that's what they would do. We've spoke with the budget officer and with the budget committee, and told there will be some positions and money that we'll be able to assist back. Not going to cover both positions, but we will present that more according to what Amanda and Sarah advised us in the September, when we present it in the September meeting. But we just wanted to give you the heads up on it, that we are looking for that. Beth, do you want to hit on the ENR?
Sure. We've talked in budget as well about our election night reporting system. We're still searching. We still have just found the one company, Sage Smith. So we're working with purchasing agent, and we're hopefully moving forward, and we'll have some final numbers for September.
Okay, committee, any discussion for Beth or Bill on the 2 new positions they're eventually going to be seeking, and the ENR, as they call it, the election night
That's-
reporting.
Correct.
All right,
Just
yes,
a comment. that,
Supervisor
I'm
Conover.
not sure everybody understands the difficulty of immediate election night reporting in terms of the information and how it comes, and when it comes in and the difficulties of that. So, I mean, people want good, good numbers. They want them as quickly as they can get them. We've got to make every effort to do that. But it's a pretty significant challenge.
And that's exactly what it is, Mr. Conover. What it is the two systems that we have, the Dominion voting system and the Clear Ballot voting system, produce two different reports. And with the numbers coming in, I know we've had some complaints in the past about them coming out so slow, but that's the current system that we have. We're hoping that it'll speed it up, and it'll also take these two systems and combine them. It takes Beth and I about 2.5 days to sit in her office and manually take the numbers from one system, add them to another system to get them ready for a state report. This system would merge those numbers automatically for us. Beth, is there anything more that I missed? You've been into that.
Nope, and there's a lot of auditing as well in the reporting system to make sure that everything is in checks and balances and the whole number is there that matches ballots cast and people that had signed the poll books. So there's a lot of checks and balances with the Sage Smith system that we like.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Let's move on to another action item. County Clerk Pam Bogle is present, and before you is a request. It's an action item to fill 2 vacancies. One is a motor vehicle license registration clerk, grade number 8, due to retirement, and motor vehicle license registration clerk number 10, grade 8, due to resignation. Pam, County Clerk Vogel, would
Thank
you
you. Thank you, sir.
like to elaborate?
Sure, but first I'd like to thank Amanda, and I apologize in advance at this point in time for, kind of coming in at the last moment here. Last night, it looked like I could make this meeting, and yet there were some extenuating circumstances that meant that I couldn't necessarily guarantee it. So I'd much rather come before you personally, rather than do something through an emergency notification. So anyway, thanks, Amanda, for seeing that we got this matter before our committee. So what we have here are notices to fill. They are extensions. We had a retirement last year, which prompted a move up, a promotional up, and thus in the DMV created a vacancy. So that was a vacancy that came before committee last January. 2 months later, we had a resignation in the DMV, also same position, motor vehicle reg clerk. And again, we came before committee, and that was approved by committee at the end of March. Well, one has now reached expiration and the other will soon. So we felt it appropriate to bring both before you today to make sure that while we are getting this process underway for interviews and et cetera, that we also had timely and valid notices to fill. So it's what we had last January and March. We present them today as an extension. We hope to proceed with this process. We're in the process of doing so, but one is expired, the other will soon be. So we ask your approval of them once again to extend both of those notices.
Okay, motion to get it to the floor for further discussion if needed, made by Supervisor Conover, second by Supervisor Driscoll. Further discussion? Committee? All right, I guess I have to open the public portion to allow Mr. McGowan to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pam, last time I believe this was brought up, we were waiting for the test, the civil service test. Has that all been taken care of? And,
Yes.
okay, good. So we have some updated applications or,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
We're starting to go through those.
Good. All right, thank you. That's all. I just remember last time, this is what we were waiting for. Want to make sure we're,
Test was March 5th. Results came August 5th.
all right, thank you.
And then we had a.
All right, Pam, we're not able to hear you because
I'm
you're talking to
sorry. I
Brad
forgot.
and not on the
I didn't
microphone.
see Supervisor McGowan behind me. Yes, so we had the test was given March 5th. And another group that had some prospects on it, we went through and then we have just received August 5th, this most recent update.
I believe last time we talked, we were waiting for that. More, do you have the latest, your agenda there?
Yes, you need to.
Thank you.
I'm sure.
Thanks so much.
I hope I answered that question.
Yep, you did.
I don't know how much we got of that on the record.
Okay.
You okay? All right. Okay, Frank, Supervisor Thomas.
So you have candidates now because of the results on the fifth?
We have a few. Not a lot. But we do have a few.
So if you don't fill them out of those people, what happens? You have to retest?
I believe we'd have to go to, I believe we could go to provisional. It's a tough one to fill. It's a very difficult one to fill. We'll do our best.
Yeah, Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I agree, especially an appointment like this with the divisional, because the investment in training and everything else, and then if they don't score well enough, then you're back to square one. I mean, I feel the pain, Pam. I
Yeah.
feel the pain.
Yes, it is difficult. I'm sure we're not the only department that hasn't had, a strong number. Many years ago, we might see 20, 25 candidates on an eligible list, and you would go through those. And, we haven't had that in a while, but we work through what is presented to us to the best of our ability.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Pass unanimously. All right, let's go now to referrals pending items. First one being suggested creation of a separate per diem FOIL, Freedom of Information Law officer position. Discussion is to continue on options available as well as documents that are available. And County Council, Elman, have you had a chance to work on this at all?
I went and looked at the current existing FOIL policy.
Is that microphone working?
Oh, really?
No.
Let me just go to the podium. So that-
All right, thank you.
Sorry, yours work. Mine don't.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I reviewed the existing FOIL policy, and one immediate observation is that it is substantially different than the model FOIL policy listed on the Committee for Open Government's website. The former county administrator did make some recommended modifications to the existing FOIL policy before he left. And I felt rather than trying to recreate the wheel, that maybe the committee would be interested in looking at what the model form is that's recommended by the Committee of Open Government. It certainly, from my position as the county attorney, would make it somewhat easier to interpret and ultimately, if necessary, defend FOIL decisions if our county policy maybe not mirrors, but very closely resembles that's being used by other municipalities across the state, because that's the prevalent form that's then being interpreted by courts as compared to the policy we currently have in place, which I legitimately had a difficult time reconciling with the recommended form by the Committee on Open Government. So I do not have any work product to provide today. In an abundance of caution, I decided not to put a lot of hours into updating and modifying our existing FOIL, because that was beyond the scope of, I think, what the committee envisioned, and thought it would be best to get some guidance and hopefully a recommendation to distribute the model policy as well as our existing policy in the hopes that we can move in a direction that would be more consistent with what other municipalities have adopted and are following.
All right, so I think the question is the committee interested in looking at the two policies for further discussion at our next meeting? The two policies I'm referring to are the existing county policy and the model policy referred to by county council. All right, they're shaking their heads yes. I don't think we need to vote on that.
Okay.
Can we put that on the agenda? And
I'll-
we'll
I will-
ensure that we get those documents.
I'll distribute it early, either later this week or early next week to everybody on the committee and any supervisors who may want to see it as well, who have an interest. Just email me and let me know. That doesn't really address the per diem position. But I think that issue can be overlaid on the larger answer of what are the FOIL rules that the committee wants to recommend for FOIL.
Yeah, our discussion on that matter, just to refresh everybody's memory, if you'll allow me, was that to have the county administrator also be the FOIL officer was a burden that's getting in the way of the county administrator from doing other administrative things that some of us thought was more important, and that we create an office that would be a FOIL officer office and perhaps be freer from political intrusions than what we've seen in the past, if that's possible. We thought of creating that independent position out of our legal office and or the county clerk's office. So those are options that were brought up and somewhat discussed. And county council, have we made any progress there in determining which department, or we even mentioned outsourcing this as something that county council in their position would like to weigh in on?
My recommendation, and I'm hesitant to say it was the position of our former county administrator, because I don't want to speak for him or inaccurately represent. But it was my sense and opinion that a significant portion of the actual requirements for FOIL could be executed at the department head level. So part of the policy was to not push responsibility for complying with FOIL. That would kind of be the administrative role of one individual to know that a FOIL request came in on a certain date, that a response is required by a certain date, or an extension of time must be provided by that date. But to get the nuts and bolts of the various departments who have the records to do that work, to get those records, to prepare the redactions, and then for that clearinghouse individual to make sure the records are timely and quickly disclosed. The issue and the problem specifically comes in with requests that are directed to supervisor records in large part. And that's where the time, energy, effort, and focus has fallen in the past. And that's the question that there's not necessarily a clear answer on, but maybe that is a more limited obligation for one individual, whether it's a per diem appointment and hire by the county, or someone who is in some way insulated and protected either under civil service law or otherwise from any future concerns or influence about fully disclosing documents that are properly requested through FOIL involving supervisors. So it's really that, and there may be some others, but it seems, and again, this is my impression alone, not, I don't want to speak for anyone else, that it's that supervisor focused request for documents that has caused the significant portion of the time, energy, effort, and maybe even difficulty on occasion in responding. So that kind of, if I could focus, maybe the committee, that would be my way to focus on how do we deal with that. Now, the second part is the potential that I'm also going to recommend that the county appeals officer be identified as the county attorney, not the chairman of the board supervisors going forward. In substantial part, it's the county attorney that would then have to defend any Article 78 proceeding that's brought against the county. And I don't want to call it self-serving because it's a legal and ethical obligation to comply with state law, but certainly the motivation to ensure disclosure when required and redaction and exemption when appropriate would fall on the county attorney's office, which would be doing the appeal review and preparation for any chairman of the board who's serving as the appeals officer anyway. And we would be making the recommendation, but rather than make the recommendation, we would just make the determination and then defend the results if that requesting party disagrees with the appeal determination.
Okay. All right, so those are some thoughts on behalf of the county council. Any thoughts from the committee? Yes, Supervisor Conover.
I like the approach. I think it's the correct approach. I think I'd like, look forward to seeing the model. Look forward to seeing what other areas are doing. We could learn from that.
I think that's a good suggestion.
And then I think the overlay on exactly where the responsibilities fall, I think that somehow I think that will probably all line up somewhere along the way.
All right, so Supervisor Conover is asking county council if he or somebody in his department can put together a model of what he just presented to us for further discussion. Yes,
I
Supervisor.
would second that. I just have a comment. A couple months ago, I had a conversation with the Washington County Administrator, who I used to work with when she was employed by the city of Glens Falls. And we were talking about foils, and it's still the responsibility of their county administrator. They collaborate when necessary with their department heads when it's appropriate and when it's possible to do that. But it sounds to me like the volume of foils that they have received in the last few years has been a lot less than we have. And I don't always get into analytics, but I'd kind of like to see some type of a chart as far as the last 10 or 20 years, the volume of foils. I'm in my 13th year as an elected official. I've never filed a foil. And to the best of my knowledge, my name has only appeared one time, and I got a verbal apology from the individual that submitted that. But I understand that I'm just one person, but my question is, if you have a per diem person, do you have a budget for that? Could you possibly exceed that if foils start to blow up and we get even more because we have a person to review those and decide on those who is supposedly impartial, doesn't involve politics into it. Whether or not that's taken place in the past or not, that's not to be discussed today, in my opinion. But I think that, requesting that our attorney's office look into that and with the recommended, plan that was discussed this morning. I would
Okay.
support that and second it if it was.
I don't think we need an action
Okay,
be taking place. It's just the consensus of the committee.
I'm on board.
Okay.
I'll quickly provide to the committee members the current policy, the model that's offered through the Committee for Open Government. And then by the next meeting, I'll prepare and I'll ask the administrative staff to also review, comment, and correct a proposal that'll probably include everything other than how to deal with FOIL requests for supervisors' records, because that's the difficult decision that the committee, and in my mind, the committee needs to provide some guidance on, because I can't create that.
So supervisor, you mean county supervisors requests for foils probably need to have some kind of a policy outline?
No, what I actually mean is any FOIL request that comes into the FOIL access officer that's seeking records of or by a supervisor. Who determines what we do with that FOIL request?
You mean, and I believe it's happened, that some county supervisors have made requests of personnel information, attorney-client privilege information that wouldn't usually be released to other FOILers because it's privileged information.
No, I think where I'm going is much more basic and simple.
Yeah,
And it's who's going to be the county employee who determines what records are released, which are county records concerning a county supervisor. That can be a request from any member of the public. It can be a request from another supervisor. But
see,
department records would be, the FOIL officer would be the department head or his or her designee. And that covers most of the departments. It doesn't have to be every single department because we have so many. But the core area where in my observation, there was so much work there was a large number of requests for documentation, documents and records about supervisors' activities, writings, emails, travel, internet activities. And those requests, it doesn't matter who sent the request in. It's a request looking for the records of you, the supervisors, one or groups, or maybe even all on occasion. And it's easy to have department heads determine what records should be releasable under FOIL for their departments. It's much more difficult. And there's a friction that's inherent in the releasing of supervisors' records for a FOIL request. And that's the piece where I would be looking for the committee to assist in who is going to be the person responsible for that.
Well,
Does that, am I making,
yeah, but we can get into this discussion when you give us the model.
okay,
For example, making department heads the FOIL officers or their designees. They certainly have to be guided by policy. And we're going to be looking at that, and you're going to send us a model policy that you recommend might be wiser to go with than our current policy, just because it would be more defensible and other reasons. But still, having an overall independent officer to assure that the FOIL obligations are being met and to assure that items that are not allowed to be let out to the public are not let out to the public. So we still need that gatekeeper. You know, you can't make the department heads the FOIL officers without a gatekeeper. So we still, and that gatekeeper needs to be independent, and that gatekeeper, I don't think should be the county administrator, and I'm not alone in that. So we'll have this discussion, but you'll give us something to work with.
absolutely.
Okay,
And it'll just be a recommendation.
all right. Before I move on to the other topic, I don't want, if anyone wants to discuss further at this point in time. Okay, seeing no committee member. The next item, I'm not so sure where it came from or what it deals with, but I'll learn right now. Reimbursements to supervisors for non-education related expenses. What are we talking about? Yeah, I don't know who brought this. It wasn't me.
Could this be about travel and conference?
I don't know. Do you know?
I don't recall what it was related to. I don't remember what committee it came from, but there was a question about supervisors submitting for reimbursements and which were proper. So say, just for instance, if you attend something that was a non-approved training, like the EDC luncheon,
Yeah,
if you go to that, is that something that a supervisor can or should be submitting for reimbursement from the county? Or if there's like an awards dinner or something like that, that's where this stems.
All right, well, the EDC luncheon is optional, I suppose, and but how about the Lake George Association annual fundraiser or meeting? I mean, you pay, I don't know what it was, $125. It includes lunch or something. But where does it stop? I mean, so I go, how about the Hyde? How about the Chapman? How about me going out and playing golf as a fundraiser for the Civic Center? I'd like to be reimbursed for that too. I do all those because it's kind of part of my job. And I don't have to do them. I mean, they're elected and I'm not learning much by it. I guess I'm getting goodwill out of the thing, but that comes out of my pocket, but I don't know. Discussion. Yes.
Yeah, I think you could, I speak pretty loud. I think where this came from was there was some discussion about who would authorize, who would have the authority to say, you could do this, you can't do this person can come, this qualifies as a official business, this doesn't, if you're chair, this qualifies. There was a lot of questions about that. So I think that that's what sent this item onto this agenda, so that there was some clarification, and the request was indeed for a list of acceptable events, acceptable list of things other outside of education, because that's handled elsewhere, that for county supervisors. But that's where that came from.
Okay, so I think it would be helpful if I had the current policy on reimbursement in front of me, and I'm probably my fault. I don't.
I think that there is a current policy.
Oh,
So there is
okay.
a section of public officers law that speaks to what supervisors or what elected officials can be reimbursed for. So maybe we should start there and have that for next.
All right, well, maybe at our next meeting, we can have that. Discussions at the present time, and we'll have the New York State's guidance on it for our next meeting, maybe. Is that okay? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
just to think, there's always the desire to have a concrete list of things, but it's hard to list every single thing. And I wonder if there would be parameters, because as you just mentioned off a series of potentials there, how does this further your job with the county and those various qualities of an event? Maybe that comes in.
Well, the Cornell Cooperative Extension and the state dinner that's up to Cronin's Golf Course certainly help. All right, I'm only jesting. Okay, so we'll continue that discussion. Unless there's, all right, next item, consider adding Juneteenth as the official county holiday. Juneteenth. I mean, my first thought on that, and I'm sorry, Supervisor McDevitt.
No, please go ahead.
That's something that really should be as part of the negotiations. Is this something that our employees are asking and they want it to be part of the contract? I don't know, but anyhow, Supervisor McDevitt.
I think it, to a certain extent, I think it becomes a management labor issue. I think the negotiating bodies within Warren County in terms of people that represent the employees, people who represent the management arm, that I think if there's this desire for, there has to be some sort of interplay, some discussion, some negotiation, because I think it basically it's an issue that the bargaining units that represent the employees in the county should be involved.
Well, it comes to the point, I don't think anybody here is going to dispute the importance of the day. And recognizing the importance of the day. But do you give all employees the day off? And there's a certain cost involved in that. And so are you going to get, a contractual arrangement that would be beneficial to the county at large? I don't know. Supervisor Thomas.
Oh, I think it's important, maybe to the people of Texas, but I think the rest of us didn't even know Juneteenth existed until a couple of years ago. So I guess I would be a little bit opposed to making it a holiday for the county. I mean, if you want to make Emancipation Day a holiday, I might support that. But Juneteenth, I don't see. To me, it's a Texas holiday, not not everybody else's.
Well, it's symbolic. It's a metaphor of the whole situation.
Well, so is Emancipation Day.
Yes, it is.
Nobody says anything about that.
Okay, Supervisor Disco.
Yeah, growing up in Massachusetts, we celebrated Patriots Day. And it was only supposed to be for the city of Boston. But what about all the people that came from the suburbs that worked in Boston? They wanted that same day off. It's almost become a recognized holiday, as I understand it, or unrecognized, but still observed in Rhode Island, New Hampshire, maybe parts of Connecticut, Vermont, and Maine. But there's certainly a cost involved with it. And I agree with Frank 100%. But I also understand that in a way, it's also a tourism, economic development, and public relations issue. Whether we recognize it in Warren County as a holiday, we've got 62 counties in New York State. We don't want to be part of 3 or 5 counties that don't observe it, because that people do see that. And when they're planning their vacations, even when they're talking about moving here, starting a small business here, those are the types of quality of life issues, whether you recognize that or not, that are important to some people. So I guess I would, I mean, we've got some time, but we've got to get on the ball. I'd maybe take a look at what other counties in New York State are currently doing about discussion, and maybe reach out to them. And maybe that's something that ISAC could help us with, as far as
That's a good
kind of
suggestion.
getting some type of a consensus of how that's being addressed statewide.
I could text Stephen and see what he knows about it, and then get that information back to you, to the committee. Any other committee people, thoughts? All right, then I'll open up privilege of the floor to the public on this matter. All right, Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, in the corporate world, they're floating holidays, so it gives people the options to do that. Maybe that's something that we ought to look into, is floating holidays. This way people can take certain. Now, this is only one particular day. I know usually there's a couple different days that are options out there for businesses for floating holidays, but we can, always give an option. And that way, it's one way to look at it. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, again, that would probably be part of the negotiations team and the contract. I think it's a good suggestion, Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you.
But again, that would go back to who's ever on the negotiating team. All right, thank you. Still, privilege of the floor is open. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. I have a question. Do we have any other federal holidays that we do not recognize?
I don't know who you're asking that question of.
Anybody that could answer it.
It's not,
Does the county not recognize any other federal holiday?
We can look into that.
Thank you.
all right, privilege of the floor is still open for non-committee members. Seeing no further interest, I'll close the privilege of the floor on this item and moved on to the next item. I still don't get it. I read it again. Adirondack Park Local Government Review Board Resolution opposing Senate Bill 1145 Conservation Subdivision. I read it again. I mean, if I ask somebody from the Adirondack Council to come in and explain that to us, am I going to get one opinion? The APA is going to have a different opinion? I just don't know exactly what's being asked here. Now, do I believe that we should allow additional development in the Adirondack Park? The answer is yes, but I don't know the details here. But so maybe one of you or somebody could speak to this. If he knows more than I do, which is real easy.
Yes. I'll take a stab at it here, and we'll look towards Chairman Garrity or Supervisor Thomas to fill in anywhere here. Conservation development legislation was started years ago. Former Supervisor Simpson was involved in helping craft of this, as well as a group of others on a collaborative basis to be able to take large-scale subdivisions so that it would protect certain environmental areas within the bounds of the land being subdivided. That would provide for wildlife habitat, ecosystem services, and so on. That then went off to Albany and got modified. And at the same time, the Adirondack Park Agency has been working on updating their large-scale subdivision regs, and I'll look to Supervisor Hogan, who sits on the APA board, if she can correct me or help fill this conversation a little bit. And a lot of the review for subdivisions within the Adirondack Park go through the Adirondack Park Agency, and there is a feeling there within the agency that their regulations can be sufficient to cover a lot of the concerns that are within this. And these are my terms, the modified conservation development bill that is in the legislature at this time. So that's, like I say, I stand to correction on any of those, but I thought I'd take a stab at it.
Supervisor Hogan, can I call upon you as somebody on the APA to give a perspective on this matter, if you're prepared to do so? If not, I can ask you to do so at the next meeting.
I don't have the resolution in front of me and I'm not prepared to speak to it, but Supervisor Leggett said that Chairman Garrity or Supervisor Thomas were going to be able to speak to it, and they're right there in the room. So there you go.
All right, Supervisor Thomas.
I can give you my understanding of it. And I can do that by giving you an example. Say there's a property owner in the Adirondack Park that has, say, 64 acres. And that person's in an 8-acre zone or that's regulated by the Adirondack Park Agency. Theoretically, he could have 8 different lots. My understanding is that with this legislation, they would rather him have just, say, 2 lots, and they would be condensed into one section of that property, and the rest of it would be basically conservation easement property. That's my understanding.
I'm a little worried about information that's being given out here. Can we get somebody from the who wrote the resolution to come and speak to this committee before deliberation happens and more information gets put out there?
There's legislation, there's laws that are written, so I guess we could bring that forward.
I think maybe scheduling Jerry to come and talk and Peter Bauer, or, hearing from all sides would be beneficial for the committee. I really think so. Just my suggestion.
I'm having trouble with it. You know what Frank just explained? I have no problem with that. I think it's a good idea, but
There's, oh, let the chairman.
yes.
Yeah, I'll
Privilege
speak
of
to
the
what I
floor.
know
Well,
about it. This
Chairman, I don't think needs.
This
privilege.
bill, as the way it was written, was more restrictive than what the APA regulations were. So therefore, the APA local government took a stance against the bill. It was put forth by the Senate. It hasn't made it out of committee yet. I don't think it's made it to a vote out of the Senate or Assembly. It's been laboring there for about 2 years now. It's more restrictive in the APA Act, so we support what the APA does. We just don't support what this legislation was going to do to the rights of the people who live within that park. But I could certainly reach out to Jerry Delaney and have him come down if you want to and give you the nuts and bolts of it. But it's languished. It hasn't made it out of committee yet. But it was more restrictive on the people within the park than what the current regulations are.
Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, we can
Chairman
recommend.
Garrity, reach out to Mr. Delaney and see if he can attend our next government ops meeting.
Yeah, we'll make sure.
Right.
All right.
Just putting it down. Supervisor Driscoll.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the floor, locally elected officials for their perspective and information sharing. And I would agree, let's get, the guy who does this.
Maybe we can get Matt Simpson too, if he's one of the sponsors.
He wasn't one of the sponsors. He was involved back in the day on developing the conservation development legislation, and it has changed. So the last time I spoke with him, I do not think he is still in favor of what is now on the being considered.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll get Jerry Delaney here for the next meeting, maybe.
Can I make a quick suggestion?
All right, so I'll keep the privilege of the floor open on this matter. First of all,
We've got Andrea who wanted to say something.
who's not Andrea?
Supervisor Hogan.
Supervisor Hogan?
Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick suggestion. As in all things, we like to have a balanced consideration of anything that we're deliberating. I believe it would be beneficial to ask somebody like Peter Bauer or another environmental advocate to come in and also speak to this, to hear both sides.
I think that's a good suggestion too. Would you be willing to do that for us? If you have those connections?
I would be happy to do that for you. I just need the date of your next committee meeting.
We'll get that to you. Thank you,
Thank
Supervisor.
you.
Supervisor Bramer, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Chairman. No, I don't need to say anything if there's going to be further discussion on it at a future meeting. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Move on to the next item. So we'll have further discussion of this. All right, next one, discussion regarding amending the rules of the board to indicate that all resolutions are adopted by a simple majority. All resolutions only require a simple majority. I don't know how that's got here. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea, so let's talk about it. Anybody?
Amanda?
Yes, Amanda?
So in the rules of the board currently, the only vote that doesn't require a simple majority is the creation of new positions. And that is a 2/3 majority vote. So that's what you would be.
All right, so
changing.
this would just make that one exception a non-exception if we change the rules to say everything is going to be a simple majority. Okay.
There is,
Super-
if I could just clarify, there is one other location in the rules where a 2/3 vote is required. And it's when you're legalizing a municipal obligation incurred through error or mistake. And I want to ensure that this discussion is not involving that provision, which is section E4 of the current rules.
Okay. So noted, thank you to County Council. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, and wasn't this something that was put in place as a result of the that recessionary period? I just see a shaking. I just make sure I'm correct in this.
It was, and then a couple of meetings ago, Chairman Garrity had brought it up and asked because there have been some issues with attendance at the second board meeting, which.
So the question,
That's where it came from.
so the question seems to me is, I mean, the reason it was put in place at that time was that they wanted to make it difficult to create positions because of the economic period we were in, impacts to financial condition. So they said, well, let's make a 2/3 vote required to do this. And we've been operating under that rule ever since. And so now the question is, well, do we need to continue that rule? I guess is the question. And it would seem to me that that I think, emergency situations require certain measures. Perhaps we no longer need to operate under that rule. Like you say, it's the only one. We can always reinstate it if we feel it's necessary to reinstate it. If we find ourselves in a situation where that we want to apply that rule again, I think we could do that. That would prevent us.
So you would favor going back to simple majority with everything except for county council's provision of E4?
Yeah, I would. Under normal situations, it creates an onerous situation in terms of the operations of our departments. I do believe.
Okay,
It's an encumbrance that I don't think it's needed. I think we as managers put it in place because we wanted to govern down and make sure we, vacant positions weren't, new positions weren't being created, and vacant positions weren't getting filled, and so on and so forth. But I think we can do that anyway. The only application the rule has in my mind right now is creating a very high bar on our departments to create a position. Should we continue that? I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world if we continue that, but I don't see the harm in scaling it back out.
okay. Supervisor Driscoll?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to be clear, if I could ask Mr. Ellman to cite an example of the circumstance that he was saying would
Before?
fall under his purview. I guess I just want to be clear on.
Yeah, I haven't seen it since I've been here as a county
Okay.
attorney, but it's basically if under state law, if there's a municipal obligation that's been incurred through an error or a mistake, there's an obligation that the county approve that by a 2/3 vote.
Would that include a responsibility, a legal responsibility to, we had one a few months ago where we needed to compensate an individual situation in the county. That wouldn't fall into that.
I can't answer that.
Okay,
off
all
the
right.
top of my head.
I'm good. I'll learn more about that.
Supervisor Thomas, it looked like you wanted to say something.
No,
Supervisor Kano?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't this recently apply to the creation of a position in the planning department? So, why don't we just run that scenario and think about it in terms of good government, right? I mean, we had a desire to want to create a position in the planning department. Some supervisors thought that was a good thing. Some thought perhaps it wasn't a good thing. And so in this instance, a small number of supervisors were in a position to keep that from happening because a very high threshold was required to create that position. So it just seems to me that in terms of good government, that you have departments that present certain organizational structures and certain budgets, but those are evolving throughout the year, changing situations. And so now what we do is we say, well, to a department, well, if you are looking to change your organizational structure, create a position, and that involves the deletion of a position, as well as the creation of a position, but the creation of that position is going to require a 2/3 vote of the board. So now you cemented an organizational structure that the department may not find as advisable.
Okay, well, what's the will of the committee? Do we want to, do we feel strong enough about this that we would like to put it before the Board of Supervisors for a majority vote or all except for E4?
I'm trying to think of another situation where this applied recently.
Well, and again, we can have further discussion when it comes before the Board of Supervisors.
That's a good point. The county attorney's office. They're looking to consolidate and create a county attorney position. That's another example recently. That one slipped my mind.
I was actively abstaining from the
Oh,
conversation.
yes, I know. I understand. No, I'm not looking, I'm not looking.
All right, so,
Mr. Chairman.
yeah, I'm losing my committee people, plus the Lake George Action Plan is losing me. Yes,
I'll let it go.
Administrator.
On this consideration, is there, what benefit does the county derive by requiring a 2/3 vote? If there is none, I would suggest that it be brought back down to simple majority like everything else.
All right, I'm looking for a consensus from the committee. As to,
I'm
Do
fine with
you-
the simple majority.
are you comfortable with the simple majority amending of the
With the
rules
provision for, Yeah.
with the exception of B4, going before the Board of Supervisors, coming from this committee as bringing it to that next level? All right, I see the consensus to do that. So, all right, a motion to do that, brought by Supervisor Thomas, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. All those in favor of what I just stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any nays? All right. Last item, privilege of the floor. Speak to anything in the government ops world. Yes, Supervisor Thomas.
Yes, I have one item. I think it will be relatively easy.
This is not privilege of the floor, it's still committee then.
Right.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Supervisor Thomas.
And it's what it is a resolution authorizing the establishment of the 250th American Revolution Committee. And
Oh.
if I may, Mr. Chairman, our county historian, Mr. Stan is here, and Mr. Barry. Actually, they brought this to me to bring forward, so
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
you would like to.
Yeah, I'm going to request that one of you speak to this, or both of you,
Right there.
but please do so at the microphone.
Podium.
Good afternoon. Thank you. For those of you I don't know, my name is Stan Sanfrano and I'm your county historian. And I brought with me the new Queensberry historian, Mr. John Barry. But what I would like to do is remind everybody that the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution is coming up. And we here in Warren County have been fortunate that John Barry has offered to take a lead role in that, and he'll tell you what he wants. And I'll pass out the magic papers.
Afternoon. I'll give you a Reader's Digest version because it's late and I know you probably want to go home and have a cocktail or two. We are establishing a committee to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the revolution. We all know it passed through this area quite a few times, both Warren and Washington County. What we have accomplished so far is we've established dialogue with Washington County through Paul Carty, who's the Fort Edward historian. And he has volunteered to take the lead rein in Washington County. We have also worked with Lauren Roberts, who's the Saratoga County historian. They have already established their committee and gotten approval from their full board of supervisors. What we would like to do is have the Warren County Board endorse the committee. I have taken the liberty of mailing a letter to the New York State historian and informing him that in the town of Queensberry, we had the board pass a resolution to establish a committee so that it was basically official. And he has added that committee and any subsequent endorsements to the field guide of New York State's committees that they've already established. To that end, my primary concern to him also was that having been in business for over 50 years, I know the first one in line with his hand out generally gets the lion's share of the fund. So I propose to be one of the first in line. The reason we have done this with me being the lead from Queensberry is that I've talked to all the other town historians. They have no problem with it because obviously it's less work for them. And we have their full support in going forward. Also, as one particular person to be a contact point for all the towns, things can go a little smoother. Funds can be raised a little bit quicker. That type of a situation exists. And like I say, we are going to work with, this is not strictly Warren, but we're going to work with Washington County and Saratoga. Any questions initially?
Oh,
Okay.
so what you're requesting is that this committee show its support if there's a consensus to do so. And possibly have a resolution go before the Board of Supervisors to see if there's support to go forward with this.
Exactly.
Okay. And do we need a vote on that? All right.
I'll move it forward.
Moved by Supervisor Thomas, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Any further discussion? All right, I'm voting in favor of going forward with what was proposed today and having the county consider a resolution in support of the establishment of the 250th American Revolution Committee and the county standing behind them going forward. And possibly that might mean financial too, but we're not asking for that at this time.
Once we get it established, I'm sure we would probably initially require somewhat of an amount to start getting a marketing firm in line so that we can develop logos. The other thing I will mention to the board is that we have a unique advantage over Saratoga. Saratoga's primary impetus is going to be because of the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. They have a year's window. After that, it's pretty much what else happened in Saratoga. Whereas we in Warren and Washington County were the subject of continuous raids and activity from Tories and Patriots from 1775 right up to 1783. So we have a little bit more in the towns that we can do to commemorate this. So the financial reward is going to be perhaps a little bit more elongated for us than it would be for Saratoga. Just a thought to plant in the head.
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for what you're doing. Okay, you to bring us back and remind us of the history in our area.
Right.
Very, very substantial, very important, and I certainly need to be reminded of that often. And but certainly our youth, certainly it's a good thing for that to teach them about kind of where we come from. So thank you.
Exactly. We're all Americans, first and foremost.
Yeah, and going forward with the.
I will say, if any of you gentlemen or ladies have any questions, please contact me at the town office building or go through Stan. And Dr. Cianfrano can get it to me and I can answer specific questions for you or provide you with any of the documents or letters that I've already written up. And as soon as the board approves it, I will be sending them out.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Let's vote. All those in favor of showing county support for supporting the events and activities going forward that Warren County is very proud of, and Warren County is going to be working with Saratoga County, Washington County, Essex County even, because they're so interrelated in these Revolutionary War activities. But this committee is just saying that we support, the county supports going forward with this effort. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I,
Any nays? All right, I'd like to thank County Historian Stan Soprano and Town Historian of Queensbury, John Berry. Thank you for making this effort. Okay, privilege of the floor. Yes, Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. I want to commend this committee on its unanimous support for the semi-quincentennial, did I get that right? Celebrations, the 250th anniversary. I just want to point out that on a national level, a big focus is going to be on the contribution of African Americans to America's founding. So circling back to a conversation from earlier, I'm going to answer my own question. No, there are no other federal holidays that Warren County does not recognize. I'm asking this committee to seriously consider a resolution supporting the institution of Juneteenth and stop talking about it as though African Americans and people of color have to negotiate their own holidays. Please bring it back to the floor. Juneteenth is an important holiday to a lot of people.
Okay, it is an important holiday. Any further discussion? Anybody else privileged to the floor? Supervisor Bramer?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I was in a meeting, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. I think it was the tourism meeting when we had a couple of people who joined the meeting late via Zoom, and there was some comments about the importance of being able to join our meetings by Zoom when we need to have a little bit of flexibility. I know in my case, I try not to miss meetings, but sometimes I do for work or for other responsibilities that I would consider extraordinary circumstances, such as caring for my parents or caring for children. And I know that many other supervisors on this board also have responsibilities side of this board that make it sometimes really hard for them to get to meetings. And given that the legislature, the state legislature, has made it an option to allow us to have remote meetings where we do not have to have individuals of the public possibly sitting beside us in our homes. Maybe when we're sick, that's not a great idea. So I was told to come and complain to this committee. I would prefer not to complain, but to ask respectfully for this committee, legislative and rules, to adopt the model rules that are coming out in many of our municipalities, in many other counties where they are taking on this ability to have Zoom meetings, teleconferencing our meetings going forward under extraordinary circumstances when there is not an emergency, state of emergency in place like there is now. I would love to see this committee say, yes, we will take that up and put it on our agenda and have the model rule ready for us at the next committee meeting. Please take that up today.
Kramer, we did discuss it. It was an agenda item and this committee did discuss that, but administrator would like to have a comment.
So after the last meeting, I did look into this and was in conference with the county attorney's office for some details. And really the whole idea behind being, the state still encourages everybody to show up and to be in person. Therefore, they've made a high standard to hit on attendance if you are going to be remote. And that's on the extraordinary circumstances, which need to be defined. And then who determines what is or what isn't on those. So there are a lot of complications that come in onto writing up this policy or local law. It's a local law in order for it to actually become effective. For example, if there's any supervisor attending right now that just happened to be at home because there was some other work that needed to be done, more than likely that would not constitute an extraordinary circumstance. And then there's also the timeline of how much lead time do you need to give beforehand in order to be able to attend remotely. So those questions come before. So what's before the committee or the whole board supervisors is really the question, is it going to be worth it?
I'm sorry, may I respond to that, Chairman?
Yes, but we did have this discussion already. Those very same issues and the politics involved with it did come up. And I know that some bodies who are adopting rules that would allow members to attend through Zoom through extraordinary circumstances have put in provisions that would override the entity that made the decision to allow it to do so by a simple majority vote. So, you know, if you want people to be here and you think there's going to be politics involved in deciding the extraordinary situation, the exemption, and then the potential for override, and do you really want to get into that?
I just wanted to ask if that discussion was had today because I don't see it on the agenda that was.
Oh, that discussion was a couple of months ago.
Okay, so we're deciding that this committee's decided not to delve into it, not to have the discussion. Okay.
Not at this time. Am I wrong? No, my committee says I'm not wrong. All right. Anybody else for privilege of the floor? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Conover, Supervisor McDevitt.
I have one
Oh.
more item as to the status of any amendments to our IT policy in terms of access to information. Exactly where are we with that?
Oh, well, that has been brought up. We can put that on a discussion item at our next meeting.
I'm good with that. And I don't know, it would seem to me that, you know, that we should be cognizant of making sure that our IT policy is current and protects material that needs to be protected. So I would say that maybe it might be best to even have a workshop on this side. I mean, but I'll leave that to you and Mr. Alman, Mr. Chairman, as to what's
Well, at least
advisable.
I think it merits a discussion, and then this discussion might in turn lead to the formation of a committee to look at it further. So let's put it down as a discussion item at our next government ops meeting.
Would it be the pleasure of the committee to have a working draft
Yes.
provided to all committee members?
That'd be excellent. Thank
Okay,
you.
I will get that done this week because
Yeah.
we do have a draft that's already been finalized.
All right. Was that also a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, you count.
And a second? All those in favor? Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in